If you could hire better people faster, would you like to do that? That's what they call a leading question, because I know the answer to that is yes. My guest today is Ryan Englund. He is the CEO of Core Matters, and Core Matters specializes in helping people do exactly that, hire better people faster. So today we're going to talk about attracting, hiring, and retaining great talent. Enjoy my interview. Let's dive right in. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Ryan, welcome to Construction Genius.
Eric, thank you for inviting me on.
You are an expert at the fine art of hiring people and the science of hiring people. So tell me, why is hiring people like dating?
It was probably a decade ago I figured this out, but we put so much of an emphasis on our first impression, whether it's the dating world or even the hiring world. We put such an emphasis on our first impression, so much so that it's fake, that it's not really who we are. You've heard the stories of the people that are on the dating apps and then they finally meet the person. They're like, yeah, you don't look anything like what was in your profile. Yeah. You got catfished, I think is the term they use, right? We do that in the dating world where we put our best foot forward so that people perk up and they like us. And I think that comes from that natural instinct that many animals have. Like you think about the peacock, right? The one with the most beautiful feathers is the one that gets noticed.
Yeah.
And you have that same instinctual thing here. The difference is when it comes to hiring is we forget the things that are attractive to the job seeker. We focus so much on the things that are attractive to the customer, and the things that attract customers don't necessarily always attract job seekers. In fact, often it turns the good people away because we put such an emphasis on it. So if you think about that dating profile, you want it to be authentic, you want it to be real, because that's what's going to help you attract the right person to date. Same thing, same principle applies when it comes to recruiting.
You were talking about the things that are attractive to job seekers. What are some of those things that are attractive to job seekers, and maybe the non-obvious ones?
Well, I will tell you right now, one of the things that is not attractive to job seekers is money. So let's just get that one out of the way. Money is not attractive.
What does that mean? Because isn't that why we work?
Don't get me wrong. You got to pay well.
Yep.
But just because you pay 30% more than the competition, or you give someone $1 more an hour to leave their current job, that is not going to attract for you the right people.
Okay.
So I want to be really clear. Most people under the age of 40 will say money is not the number one reason. For a lot of them, it's not even top 5 why they leave their current job.
Okay. What are those reasons?
So the things that are really important, you probably heard this before. You've heard the saying, people don't leave jobs, they leave people.
Absolutely.
They leave managers, they leave bosses, which means that people aren't looking for a new job. They're looking for a new place to work. They're looking for a new company culture, a new leadership team, a better way of communicating, a company that invests in their future and trains them and develops them and gives them autonomy. That's what people are looking for. They get a sense of purpose, like a reason to get out of bed in the morning. That's what, especially the younger generation. Now, I know there's some people listening, some boomers are like, oh, it's not important to me. I'm ready to retire the next 5 years. I just want someone to make sure I slide in and into retirement wealthy. But especially for the younger generations, they are not focused on the almighty dollar. And you got to pay them well. Don't get me wrong. Pay them correctly. But the things that are important are things like training. Are you going to train and develop them?
Yep.
Are you going to give them autonomy? Are you going to let them make decisions around their role?
Yep.
Are you going to give them the personal freedoms that they're looking for?
Okay.
Help them personally. Those are the things that are important to people.
What are some of the expectations in an interview that a company should set in order to make sure that the person being interviewed not only understands the training they're going to get and the culture that they're going to get, but the obligation that the person being hired has in exchange for all of those benefits that you're describing?
Yeah. So one of the biggest mistakes that I see companies make when it comes to what you're talking about is they are not effective at communicating how they're going to grade or score the employee's work.
Hmm.
They're really good at saying, I want you to do this laundry list of things, but they're not very good at saying, this is how I want them done, or this is what good work looks like. And I would say one of the best ways to communicate that is to quantify the results that you're looking for. Everything in business can be measured. Everything in business can have a number tied to it. Even if it's a subjective number, we can agree on what that subjective number is. So when you're communicating the work that you want done, and you've identified the core responsibilities for that role, it's up to you then to sit down with the job seeker and say, and here's how we measure success. Here is how we score the game. This is what it takes to win. And having that conversation really sets the proper expectation for what's going to be expected of them.
So you're going into detail, or sufficient detail at least, in the interview process to make sure that there's no misunderstanding, there's no false advertising on your part.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so in terms of putting together, using that dating profile analogy, what are some of the key elements in the profile that I present to the world when I'm looking to hire people in terms of how I represent my company?
Yeah. Well, let me start with a process that I want you to go through. This is a process that I've heard from dating experts that have said, before you go out there and say, hey, I'm available, I'm looking for somebody, sit down and take inventory of who you are and what you have to offer. This is the first thing that you do. And I've heard this from dating experts and relationship experts. Take inventory of what you have to offer. And if you don't have enough to offer to attract the person that you want, it's time to go dust up on some skills. It's time to go get some things to offer them. So for example, if I know that looks-wise, I'm a 4.
Right.
And that means I'm probably not going to land a 10.
Yep.
But you know what? There are things that I can do, like become a better communicator, take better care of myself, maybe lose some weight, get more fit, think long-term and have a plan for my life that might attract someone that would not be a 4. Maybe they're a 7 or an 8. And I get closer because I start thinking about what are the things that I have to offer, and then what are the things that the person that I would want to attract would want. And I become those things. Now, when it comes to recruiting, you need to figure out what it is that you have to offer. Who are you as an organization? And we break that down into really how you behave. What are the acceptable behaviors inside of your organization? And I call those your core values, the things that are most important to you. Get really clear on what those are, because that is what you're going to use to attract somebody. And you might realize, you know what? We're not going to be very attractive to the kind of people we want. So we need to shift our behaviors a little bit. We need to get some leadership training or some coaching, or get a communications expert in here to really help us with how we behave in the workplace. Then once we're done with that, we say, okay, what is it that gets us out of bed to do what we do every single morning? I call that purpose. What is it that drives us to do what we do? There are a lot of different businesses you could have gone into, but you choose to become an owner or a leader in this particular business. Why? What is it that drives you? And usually there's a deep-seated reason behind that. You're going to use that to attract people that have a similar purpose, so they'll get out of bed for the same reason. And then finally, the last thing you're going to do is you're going to look at, where are we going? Remember, I had mentioned people want to be trained. They want to know that you're going to help them achieve their personal goals. Well, if your metaphorical bus, we've all heard that metaphor before, like your business is a bus, you got to get the right people in the right seats. If your business is a bus and you're going in a direction that's opposite of the people you want to attract, it might be time to reset your vision and drive in a different direction. So you've got to get really clear on who you are and what you have to offer first. And then once you've taken inventory of that and you're clear on that, now you go to the market and you say, do the people I want to join my team, is that attractive to them or not?
Let me ask you, in terms of the interview process itself, one of the mistakes that I've seen people who do interviews make is that they talk too much and don't listen enough. And again, if I'm going to go through all this work with my values, my purpose, and it's like that first date, right? And the person can't shut up. You know what I mean? And you might be in that interview process with an ideal candidate and you can't shut up. And as a result of that, you never really explore with that person whether or not they are a fit.
Yeah.
So how do you discipline yourself in that interview process to make sure that you are relational as opposed to sort of monologue-y.
Yeah. One of the first things we coach all of our clients on in their process is to shut up and learn to ask questions. And that is it. Your role is to ask questions, to be inquisitive, to be interested. There's a saying out there that says, before people will find you interesting, they need to know that you are interested. So be interested in them. So for example, one of our core values here at Core Matters is always improving. So I might go to you and say, hey, Eric, this is great. I think this could be a good opportunity for us. One of the behaviors that's really important to us here at Core Matters is always improving. What does that mean to you? And how would you expect that to show up inside of an organization like ours? And then you just shut up.
Can I explore that question with you, please?
You bet.
Explain the logic of the way that you frame the question. What does that mean to you? And how would you expect? Please go through that again and explain the logic of it.
Yeah. So I present always improving, but I don't necessarily give you my definition.
Very good.
I want to know what those two words mean to you. And here's why. Not because I'm looking to disqualify you, but I'm looking to determine how big is the gap between where I'm at on those two words and where you're at on those two words. That is going to further dictate the conversation we're about to have. And then when I ask you, how do you think that would show up? Again, what's the gap between what I know to be true, because I've done this exercise for my organization, and what you believe to be true? Now I know what it's going to take to bridge that gap. And if that gap is too big, we're not a fit for each other. But maybe we find one of those gaps is pretty short. And so we're going to have that conversation on what it takes to bridge that gap. So that's what I'm looking for. When we're interviewing, what I believe is that you are not always looking to just say yes or no. You're looking to explore, how can we make this work? Because when I'm interested and you're interested, we're going to do what it takes to overcome the challenges, just like a relationship or a marriage. There's no such thing as two perfect people. There are going to be challenges, but if we're both invested, we'll be willing to work through it. And that's the important part of the interview. Is we're really looking for, is this someone that I'm willing to invest in and to spend the time with to figure it out? And are they willing to do the same?
We're in the realm of subjectivity then to a degree here, because you're describing this gap. And I know from my own experience that people go into an interview and they come out and they say, there's a gap here, but I don't care. I'm still going to hire them.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean, that's just what happens, right? They do that.
No, it's reality.
Yep.
Yeah.
They may have all the technical skills in the world, but they don't have the same values that you do. And as a result, that creates the gap, but you hire and you hope. So
I need the hands. Yes, I've heard it before.
Totally. Tell me a little bit more about why understanding that gap is important.
Well, like I said, it helps you to figure out what the plan is to get across it. Now, you had mentioned subjectivity, and I'll tell you, when you tell me what always improving means to you,
yeah,
and you respond, and if, let's say we had 5 people here, we're all going to hear something different. We're all going to have a different opinion as to whether or not that was a good answer.
Right.
So one part of the interview process is to sit down before the interview and say, I'm going to ask anybody, one of our core values is always improving. What does that mean to you? And how do you expect it to show up? And then I'm going to work with my team. I'm going to say, what is a perfect answer? What is the answer that just makes us want to jump out of our chair and offer that person the job right now? And we're going to write that down. And then we're going to say, now, what's the answer that as soon as we hear it, it is worse than nails on a chalkboard? We want to end the interview and get out. What we've done is we've taken something that could be considered very subjective, and now we've made it objective because we decided up front what was going to be the right answer, what was going to be the wrong answer. And then there's a little bit of wiggle room in the middle as to were they closer to one or the other, right? But I encourage everybody, anytime you ask someone an interview question, especially one that's open-ended like this, grade it on a scale of 1 to 3. 1 being the nails on a chalkboard, 3 being that was amazing. And for a lot of times you're going to put a 2. You might put a 2.5. There's a little subjectivity in there, but at least you know what's the right one and what's the wrong one.
Yeah, I like that. So you're structuring questions around your values. You're creating the parameters for the right and the wrong answer. And based on that, you're able to get a little more objective about what people are telling you.
Yep.
What is the value of either group interviews or multiple interviews with different people?
So are you talking about panel interviews where there's multiple people on my team interviewing one person?
Yeah, like a panel interview or multiple rounds of interview with different people.
Yeah. So to answer that question, it depends.
Okay.
However, let me tell you what I mean by that. There's a dependency on the role that you're hiring for. If you're hiring an entry-level laborer, it's not worth bringing more executives or more managers in. I mean, it's a very expensive interview.
Yeah.
But let's say you're hiring a senior leader for your organization. Panel interviews are good so long as your team has that communication down to where they don't walk over each other. They don't talk over each other. They don't disagree in front of people. Like, you got to have a team that knows how to do a panel interview. That said, if you're a little dysfunctional in your communication and you want to put that out there and let people know this is how we communicate, I mean, that will give them a real good, clear idea of what it's like to work for you. What I'd prefer you do is the second one, which is have multiple people. So one of the things that we talk about in my book is to sit down with them. And I like to usually have a senior leader sit down with the new person and do the cultural fit interview. That's the first step in the interview, culture fit. Because if they don't fit culture, move on. I don't care. Just like you said, they might have the skills, but they don't fit our culture. We hire them anyways, and it's always a disaster. So we always look for culture fit first because we can train the skills. We might not want to, so we might pass, but we can always train the skills. So we do culture fit first. Once we finish culture fit, we move into what I call the position fit, which is, do they have the skills to do it? And this is where I bring other people in. I might bring in their hiring manager at that point and say, hey, you're going to sit down and make sure they can do the job. I've already determined they're going to fit our culture. Your job is to determine, can they do the work? Can they get you the results you want? And at that point, I would bring the hiring manager in. I would encourage the hiring manager at some point in the interview, take them and walk them around and introduce them to people on the team. And you stage this beforehand. You find one person that you're going to introduce them to. And then as the manager, you walk away and you let them have a conversation with a potential peer, because that is going to change their demeanor, the language they use, how they talk, what they say, because they're no longer worried about putting that best foot forward. They're now thinking, I'm talking to a peer. So to criticize my boss or to say something nasty about someone I met isn't as big a deal because that's what peers do.
Yeah.
And so you bring a peer in and then you have that person provide an evaluation at the end too. Do you want to work with that person? Is that someone that you could see on your team? And so that's usually the structure we have. We have a senior leader, a lot of times an owner in smaller companies, do the culture fit. Then the position fit is done by the hiring manager and someone who's a potential peer at some point.
How do you know when you've made a mistake hiring someone? And in your experience, how long does it take people to recognize that mistake and do something about it?
Whew. Well, recognizing the mistake, I will tell you, it's usually about 2 or 3 weeks before they know it.
Even in senior roles?
Even in senior roles, they'll know pretty quick. However, depending on the role, sometimes it can take 6 to 9 months for them to actually take action on it because they're so scared that I might not find someone else. And the devil I know is better than the devil I don't know. Like, they justify it in their mind. And so I've seen some people come in and in week 2, they're like, oh, we missed it on this one. And they'll continue to press, continue to work with them, continue to train them, coach them, do all of these things. And then finally, 9 months later, they're like, I can't do it anymore. And then they'll let them go and they'll start the whole process over again. So I would say that people usually know, they go with their gut. They usually know in their gut pretty quickly, did they make the right decision? Now, how do you know? That goes into onboarding. That goes into that process of bringing them in and assimilating them into our organization. And you see, in the first 2 weeks, it's really about, do they fit our culture? Did we get that right? Like, that's the first thing we got to look at. So we're assimilating them into our culture. We're acclimating them. We're helping them accept this and we're accepting them. And it becomes very much a situation of, do we feel like they belong here? And do they feel like, we're not even looking at work yet. We're looking at culture. Then we spend the next 4 weeks looking at, can they do the job? And remember, I told you those metrics, how important it is to have those scorecards or those numbers to show that they can win. Do you see progression towards those measurables to know, are they the right person? And then lastly, do they know how to win? That's what we look for. Are we setting them up to win or setting them up to fail? I'm sure you've seen this before. I've seen it many times. Companies hire people and these new people are only set up to fail. They didn't get enough training. They didn't get any onboarding. They didn't get communicated well with, and they are only set up to fail. So we need to make sure we're very intentional about setting these people up to win.
So you're describing the onboarding process in the first 2 weeks, if I heard you correctly. Is that correct?
Well, we actually look at the first 2 weeks, first 4 weeks, first 12 weeks. We call it the 2-4-12 launch.
Okay, good. And that's all under the umbrella of onboarding.
Correct.
Okay. So in that onboarding process, what do you see are the key mistakes that people make that seem to be repeated across companies when it comes to onboarding?
I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming that the employee is going to raise their hand and say, I'm confused. I missed it. I don't know. They assume that the new employee is going to say that or do that. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes they make. And so we encourage people, train them, invest in them, coach them until they tell you stop. In fact, onboarding should be employee-led. So you should be modifying your onboarding program depending on the person you hire. Remember, I told you we're looking for those gaps?
Yeah.
So I might be hiring a service technician. And one service technician is amazing at communication, loves the customer, does great, but maybe is a little rough around the edges on the skills. Another one, master technician, there's nothing they can't figure out, but they don't make eye contact well, or maybe they don't communicate very well. If I did the exact same onboarding program for both of them, I'm going to lose them both because one's not going to be able to stand the skills part and one's not going to be able to stand the sales part.
Yeah.
But if I modify it for them, I say, hey, I'm going to let them lead. What do they need the most? What do we need to close that gap? That's going to engage them. But I think most employees assume that when someone is a little rough around one of those edges, they're going to raise their hand and say, hey, I need help. And that's not at all the case.
Hey, this is Eric. Funny story, Manscaped reached out to me a few months ago and wanted to advertise on Construction Genius. And I thought about it for a second, but I just can't bring myself to read their cheesy copy. However, there is something I'd like to advertise that is not cheesy, and that's my book. Yes, indeed, Construction Genius. Effective, hands-on, practical, simple, no BS. Leadership, strategy, sales, and marketing advice for construction companies. In other words, if you're listening to Construction Genius, this is the one book that you need to read. And so what you should do is go out to Amazon, purchase a copy for yourself and all of the leaders in your organization. If you purchase more than 10 copies, reach out to me. I have a special offer for you that is worth more than $2,500. And you can just reach out to me, eric@constructiongenius.com, if you purchase more than 10 copies, which you should, because the book's awesome. And I know you'll enjoy it. So let's get back to our interview with Ryan. And again, go out to Amazon and buy a Construction Genius book today. How often should the manager or the leader of the new hire be meeting with the new hire in this onboarding process?
It slows down over time. In the beginning, though, a lot. So for example, I have this cartoon that I've done about the first day of work. And I know there are people listening here because they've done this. The new person shows up and it's like, hey, Eric, it's Ryan. I'm here for my first day of work. And you look at me like, who? It's Ryan. I'm all excited. And you're like, I'm going to go talk to Bob and see what's going on. And then Bob's like, oh yeah, hey Ryan, I'm so excited you're here. By the way, IT hasn't set up your logins yet. We don't have the keys to your truck. It's still in the shop. We know you've been coming for the last couple of weeks, but we got busy. And can you just sit in the lobby and twiddle your thumbs? Like, how does that make you feel? But imagine that someone came up and you walked in and on the little chalkboard, it was like, Eric, welcome to your first day. And you're like, oh my gosh, they were expecting me. And your manager walks out and they're like, Eric, I'm pumped. Hey, come on, let's get you logged in. I've got everything set up. I'm ready to go. And then at lunchtime, I said, hey, why don't I take you out to lunch? Let's get to know each other a little bit better. You know what? Better yet, I have lunch being catered in for the team. We're all going to sit down. We're just getting to know each other a little bit. Let's do that. So we're checking in at lunch. Then we're checking in middle of the afternoon. Hey, how is it doing? How you feeling? And then at the end of the day, hey, Eric, how was the end of your day? Tell me about that. And then the next day, checking in around lunchtime. And at the end of the day, and checking in at the end of the day, like that's the worst thing when a new employee is sitting around there going, I guess, can I go home? Like, okay. Check in with them. But after about 2 weeks, you can slow that down significantly, because after about 2 weeks, you're going to know that they're assimilated into the culture. They're going to have a good feel for what's acceptable and what's not. You can slow that down. And then maybe it's twice a week or once a week. But by the end of 90 days, you should only be checking in with them on your regularly scheduled meetings.
How do you onboard a new executive who has a team reporting to them, who was very close with the previous executive, who for whatever reason is no longer with your company?
Oh, yeah. Or the other side of it, the same coin, is the executive that comes in and goes, this isn't my team.
Right.
Right. Like they're bold. Like, that's not my boss. That's not my team. How do you do that?
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Talk about that. That's very interesting.
I'm a big fan of behavioral assessments. And I think that behavioral assessments can help you shortcut this issue that we're about to talk about. Remember, if you do it right, everybody knows what it takes to win. Everybody knows how we're being measured and what the scorecard is, what that scoreboard says. And if you have the right people on the team, the existing team that knows what it takes to win and they know how we're scoring, and you've got a new executive coming in and they know how it's scored, you should, had you done the interview process right, you should have people that say, okay, we're both here to win. We're not here to sabotage each other. We're here to win, and we know what it takes. But beyond that, you have this behavioral conflict. I liked my old boss, or I liked my old team, and I don't have that here. And so I like to use behavioral assessments. And there's no one better than the other. I'm sure there are people listening right now going, oh no, there's some better ones. But what they do is they allow you to open up conversation that's very difficult to start outside of a report. It's like, oh, Ryan, don't take this personal. It's not me saying that you get defensive in this situation. It's this report, which, by the way, this report came from a survey you took. So what it does is it allows us to sit down and say, hey, let's talk about what this team dynamic's going to look like. Let's talk about how we communicate, how we build rapport, how we motivate and support each other. Let's talk about those things. And inside of those conversations, you may actually find out there's one or two people on the team that are like, no, I was so loyal to my old boss and they left. I'm just waiting for them to call me. Or you might find out, no, I'm here to win. Let's do it.
You said that there's no one assessment that's better than the other. So tell us, in your opinion, if you have one, and if not, it's fine. What are the top 2 or 3 assessments that, in your experience, have been most effective?
I'll tell you the ones I like. But here's what I tell people. When people ask me, what's the best assessment? It's the same thing as what's the best CRM? What's the best applicant tracking system? Here's what I say. It's the one that your team likes to use. That's the best one. Because I can't tell you how many times I've talked to a team and they say, oh yeah, we use this assessment. Like, great, tell me how you use it. Well, we give it to them on the first interview and then we put it in their file. I'm like, that's not the best assessment because you're not using it. So whichever one's the best one. We have a lot of clients that use Culture Index. You may have heard of that one. A lot of clients that use Culture Index really like it. It's not one of my favorites, but it's very popular. And we're able to work with clients and help them really maximize the return they get, especially when it comes to retaining people. I like one called ProScan. It's actually one of them that I'm certified in. ProScan I like. It's similar. I get in trouble for saying this, but it's similar to Culture Index. You can infer the same things, but what's really cool about ProScan is it looks at their stressors, tells you how close they are to burnout, which is really great, especially when you've got teams that are understaffed, working overtime, burning the midnight oil to get projects done. How close are they to burning out? Because when people burn out, they get unpredictable. Mm-hmm. And we don't want that in the team. And then the last one I like a lot is Kolbe, Kolbe. And here's why I like Kolbe. We work with a lot of teams that have a lot of frontline employees. And so to spend time on a 97-page report,
yeah, right,
is really challenging. And it's like, I need them in the field. I need them working. Kolbe is 4 numbers. That's it. And when you know that you're talking to a 3296, you have all the information that you need to be able to communicate effectively. You need to know how much details they need, how likely they are to finish the project you're about to assign them, whether or not they're going to get distracted. There is so much that you can learn just about knowing those 4 numbers that can make that a survey and a report that is just so effective to teams.
That's great. I appreciate all of that. Yeah, it's interesting because you make the point, and it's an excellent point. The assessment that is the best for you is the one that you use, that works, that you guys can relate to, that is useful. Because you're right, there are so many different assessments out there.
There are.
And it's interesting because then we battle over, which assessment's the best. And, well, I've got the science and I've got the testimonials and all this kind of stuff. But that's an excellent point, Ryan. I really appreciate that.
I used to really push hard on the one I was certified in. I'm like, oh, you're using predictive index. Well, let me tell you why predictive index isn't the best. And then I just said, wait a minute, let me see if predictive index works with our model, works inside of our system. And we got this one client, just incredible results. And they got so much more value out of predictive index when they looked at it through our model. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. And then we met someone on culture index. We did the same thing. And then we met someone on DISC and we did the same thing. And I was like, not one of these is better than the other per se, but the team that embraces it, that's what really matters.
So we've been talking about the dating analogy, Ryan, and the purpose of dating not for everyone, but for some people is to find a long-term committed relationship.
Yeah.
So in your experience working with companies, what are the 2 or 3 things, in addition to what we've already talked about, those companies that are successful at establishing those long-term relationships with their employees do that other companies don't do? We've talked about the onboarding, the interview process, all that kind of stuff. Tell us a little bit about what are some other things they do.
And we mentioned authenticity as well. I want to, that's a real important one. Don't fake it, be authentic.
Yep.
One of them that I like, we call it the pullback offer. It's a process that we teach. Imagine that you're about to move in with someone. And a lot of people have moved in with somebody that they weren't directly related to, either through marriage or roommate or partner or something like that. And you move in and that first night, everything is going great. You ordered pizza and you're watching TV and things are good. And then the next morning, there's this little just zing, I like to call them. And you're just like, what the heck? They made such a mess of the bathroom.
Right.
And it's like, had you known that going into the relationship, it wouldn't be a deal breaker, but you would have been ready for it. And maybe it wouldn't have bothered you as much. How many things do we have when we first move in with someone for that first 3, 6, 9 months that we're learning about the little things? Not the deal breakers, but does the clothes go in the hamper or is the hamper more of a target? Do we squeeze the toothpaste from the bottom? Everyone's favorite, which way does the toilet paper go?
Yeah, right.
Right? All these little things. Imagine that before you moved in together, you sat in the driveway and you had a checklist of the 60 things that couples fight about in the early days of their relationship. And you just went through and go, which way does the toilet paper go? Because one of you probably cares more than the other. Okay, we'll just do it that way. Do we keep our shoes on in the house or no? Okay, let's do it that way. How do we dry the dishes? Okay, let's do it that way. And you just sat down and agreed before you walked across that threshold and said, this is how we're going to do it. We do the same thing in the business. We sit down as part of the offer meeting. We sit down and we say, let's go over this list. Let's go over a list of things that I know are going to drive you nuts and are going to drive me nuts over the next 6 to 9 months as we start working together. And the cool part about this is the list it's malleable. Right? It's customizable because there were probably things I learned about you during the interview that we need to.
Mm-hmm. Can you give me some examples of what's on that list?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So small business. We work with a lot of small businesses. One of the things that happens in small business almost without fail is information is not communicated completely. Hey, Eric, I need you to go talk to this customer and fix the problem. And I walk away and you're like, what's the problem? What are my options for fixing it? And then you go do your best. And then how often does the boss like, well, that's not what you were supposed to do. And you're like, you didn't tell me what I was supposed to do. So that's a very common one. So that's on the list. Let's talk about what happens when you don't get all the information you need to move forward successfully. What do we do? And all I'm looking for as the employer is for the job seeker to say, you know what? If I don't get all the information, I'm not feeling confident that I can go get you the results you want. I'm going to raise my hand and say, hey, boss, I need more info. And then as the boss, you say, you know what? I think that's a great answer. And I would absolutely stop what I'm doing to help make sure you get the information you need so you can move forward correctly.
Would you include in that list something like, Dave, you're going to come work here. And I want you to know that Fred's been here for 20 years and he's a bit quirky. And so it's like your weird uncle, you know what I'm saying? It's like, you've moved in with someone, you're like...
But not in a super creepy way.
Not in a creepy way. No, I'm not talking about in a creepy way. I'm just talking about Uncle Fred's coming over for Thanksgiving and he's just a little strange. Not in a creepy way, not in a legal way. I'm just...
That's where the relationship analogy breaks down.
Yeah. But would you include that in some things, just giving you a heads up as you're coming in?
I would. I think it would depend on how closely this person's going to be working with Uncle Fred.
Yeah.
If they're going to see Uncle Fred at the annual party, I probably wouldn't say much. They're going to sit next to him. Yeah, I might talk about that. I'd also probably I would go to Uncle Fred and I would say, hey, here's the deal. We got some new people coming and you can be a little quirky at times. Go easy on them. Like just ease them into it. I don't want you to change who you are. I just want you to be a little more conscious about how you're behaving and just ease them into it. Not obvious things. So for example, if I'm interviewing someone and I notice that they have a tendency to disconnect eye contact, and I know that that's going to be a problem for them in their role, I'd bring that up.
Mm-hmm.
Be like, hey, Eric, I noticed that a lot of times I'll be talking to you and all of a sudden it looks like you're drifting off. I'm pretty sure you're still listening to me, but it looks like you're drifting off. Is that something you're aware of? Is that something you know you do? And then we'll just have a conversation. Like, I'm not accusing you of disconnecting or anything. It perceives that way. We had one client one time that they could not stand it when people smacked their gum. And it drove them nuts. And this gal did it during the interview, but she was perfect on paper. She was a culture fit. Like they were so excited. But he's like, if she smacks that gum, it's not going to be long for her. Right? So let's have a conversation about it. Like, hey, I know it's a habit. I know it's a tick, but I'm telling you right now, it's going to drive me nuts. So I need you to tone it down a bit. Is that going to be a problem? Like the little things that we think, oh, well, that's weird to bring up. Why would I talk about that? Because it's going to drive you nuts. And then you're going to look for a reason to fire that person.
Yep.
And that's not fair to them. And it's not fair to you.
So let's say I'm looking at my hiring process and I'm doing my best to be objective. And I can say, you know what? Inside we're a 10, but outside we're a 2 or a 3. And we really need to put a little bit of lipstick on the pig, so to speak.
Yeah.
What are the first 2 or 3 things I should focus on in the next 90 days? And feel free, if you want to summarize anything that you've previously said in the interview, feel free to do that.
Well, I'll tell you the first thing you should always do is not the same for everybody. That one thing that where the lipstick's needed most is not the same for everybody. What I would do is I would take a step back and I would go to a coffee shop. I would get yourself out of the office and I would do a Google search of my company name and jobs and see what comes up. And I would look at those Google results and I would go, oh my gosh, my Yelp score of 2.1 is one of the first things that shows up. So I might go fix my Yelp score. Or I might see that 1-star review that got left on Indeed by that one disgruntled employee 6 years ago. And it's the only one. And I might go fix that. Or if I do a really good job in my marketing and SEO and everything else, maybe my website shows up first. And when I click on it, it's got pop-ups on it and sales, and we'll do whatever it takes to take care of the customer, even if it means working overtime and nights and weekends and being away from our family. We'll do whatever it takes. Like, is that the message you want a job seeker to see? So maybe that is what you work on first. So we call that a brand audit, an employer brand audit. We want you to go Google yourself and look for what others are seeing when it comes to working for you. 90% of job seekers are going to Google you before they apply. 90%. So they're already seeing this stuff.
That's excellent. So what do I do about that? Like, because, I mean, I can't go to Yelp and say, hey, Yelp, can you please remove this? Or maybe I can, I don't know. But what do I do when I have that kind of the 2 and the 3-star reviews?
So the Yelp side, this is probably a little bit outside my wheelhouse, but I'll speak to it for a moment. Go to your customers and start finding out why they're not giving you better reviews. Like start looking internally and saying, why aren't we getting better reviews? Because your raving fan customers should be willing to give you good reviews. Now, Yelp's got some policies on asking and some other things that I'm been told about. But with Yelp, find out why you're not getting those 5 stars and respond to those low reviews as well in a very politically correct way. Don't go blast the person. Oh, you suck. How dare you? You only leave bad reviews. That's my biggest pet peeve is when I see entrepreneurs or business owners, they get on Yelp and they're like, have you looked at this person's profile? They only leave 1-star reviews. You can't trust them. And I'm like, yeah, you just look like a big jerk when you do that.
Right.
Respond to them. Say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that you feel this way. Why don't you call us? We're going to make it right. I mean, something simple. Now on the Indeed and the Glassdoor reviews, which is where your employees are leaving reviews, your current employees can leave reviews. So go to your current employees, the ones that like you, and say, hey, we need some help. Can we get some more reviews? Be honest. Like if you give me a 4-star, give me a 4-star. If you're going to give me a 3-star or below, come see me first. Like I want to fix that. But you can go to your employees and say, can you help me out and get those ratings up?
Excellent. Excellent. So how can people get in touch with you? Tell us a little bit more about your company and what you do with people, Ryan.
Yeah. So we help companies fill every open position at all levels of the company in less time and by spending less money. And we do that through our program called the CoreFit Hiring System. So we have a set of processes and tools that we help every client implement into their business so that they're attracting, hiring, retaining the right people at the right time. And it is quite a different way of looking at this process. It's all grounded on the fact that recruiting is not an HR activity. Recruiting is a marketing activity. And when you start treating recruiting like a marketing activity, it's going to open up just a world of opportunity for you to get in front of the best people to join your team. Recruiting like a marketing activity and hiring like a sales activity and retention like a customer retention activity, it's just going to open things up for you. And your marketing department is going to be so critical to your success. And we do that through our coaching and training program. People can go to corematters.com. They can learn about our program. They can reach out to us and find out the program that's right for them. In fact, I have a book coming out that's going to detail this entire process called Hire Better People Faster. It'll be out October 17th. So if you're listening to this since after October 17th, you can get it on Amazon or anywhere books are sold.
Yeah, it will be after October 17th. And so that book is live on Amazon.
Yes, it will be there. And for those of you that don't like to read, I have good news. It will be on Audible. You can listen to it.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Awesome. Well, Ryan, I really, really appreciate you coming on. I thank you for your insights. And we're going to make sure that those links are in the show notes to your website. Let me just ask you this last question. I know you just recently moved to Nashville.
Yeah.
What is the one restaurant you've discovered in Nashville since you've moved that you're like, this might be a regular for us?
You know what? It's El Sombrero. I did not think I would find good Mexican food here, but I did. And so I think it's actually in the next couple hours. I think that's where we are headed for some fajitas tonight. Yes.
That's great. El Sombrero.
I know you're probably thinking Nashville chicken or barbecue, but we haven't got there yet.
That's great. I've got the website right here. So we will be putting that in the show notes. If you are in Nashville, you're going to have to check out El Sombrero restaurant. Thanks a lot for joining us here today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for listening to Construction Genius today. Hope you enjoyed my conversation with Ryan. Feel free to look into the show notes and check out all the links there that will get you in touch with Ryan. Particularly click on the link for his book that you can buy on Amazon. And just before you bounce away, I want to encourage you, if you are struggling to be an effective leader in your organization and you know that you could use a little bit of outside help, perhaps a sounding board to talk through tough issues that because of the sensitivity of them, you can't talk about them internally, you may need an executive coach. And that's what I do with my clients. I specialize in coaching people all the way from the CEO of the company to senior project managers. I'm not a fit for everyone, but if you've listened this far, I may be a fit for you. So go out to my website, constructiongenius.com/contact, put your details in there. I'll get in touch with you and we can have a short conversation and figure out if or how I can help you. Thanks again for listening to Construction Genius, and I'll catch you on the next episode.